Smash Ultimate has a whopping 86 characters in its roster, and each of these characters has over 20 moves to use. That's equal to a number greater than 3. The thing is, every single one of these moves has a name. Well, except for the DLC characters. See, if you were to go into the move list section, you'd see only a character's specials and their final smash. Additionally, some characters will have a tip that says the name of a few extra moves, but have you ever checked out the Smash Wiki and seen the whole entire move list come with the names for everything? For almost all characters? This is because there are strategy guides for every single Smash game, which includes Smash Ultimate, where within these guides, every single character has every single one of their moves, all with given names. Again, just without the DLC since they weren't around yet. There's a bit of an issue with this though. These strategy guides don't have official English translations. So yes, what that means is that outside of any names that were clarified in official media, the ones you're seeing on the Smash Wiki are fan translations. Still interesting in their own right, but hard to call official. Here's the thing though. There was one single Smash guide that did get an official translation, being this Nintendo Power Guide for Melee. Now, a lot of these move names take a lot of creative liberty over the source text, usually having more of a reference to the character in them, and I've even seen some purists consider them to be unofficial for that reason, but no, these are official, and they still are, kinda. Here's some good examples. Dr. Mario's up smash in Japanese is literally called the Smash Headbutt. That's how it's named in every game he's in. Very simple, down to earth. However, in the Melee guide, this was translated to become Ears, Nose, and Throat. It follows the medical theme that many of Dr. Mario's other moves do. And this is what it's referred to as in the in-game tips for Smash Ultimate. Ears, Nose, and Throat. Again, this isn't just the normal translation of the Japanese term that anyone can come to, it's very clearly taken from that original guide with its same creative liberties. So in my eyes, that all but confirms that the Nintendo Power translation of these names are still the official ones for the most part. As yes, there are also some moves that are named in the tips that do differ from this Melee translation, despite being called the same thing in Japanese. This obviously puts us in a bit of a pickle, right? On the one hand, some names keep the more liberal Melee translations, but then others don't. So what do we do? There is not a right answer. So long as these guides don't get official English translations, we're never gonna have official English names for every move. But not everything needs to be official, right? So here's the route that I'm going. If a move is named directly in Smash Ultimate, then that's obviously the final deciding factor. If it's not anywhere in the game, but the move is still the same, I'll default to its Melee translation. But then, in any and all cases, I'll try to go over all potential naming schemes, including a literal translation of the Japanese name, just so we can get an idea of the many different approaches. And then you can decide for yourself which name you like the most. After all, we don't really need an authority to dictate an official name for us to call things a certain way. I mean, we already make up plenty of our own terminology, so I think it's fine. This will mean that some of the names that I go over will differ from what you can see on the Smash Ultimate wiki, but again, that's just the nature of this. And if you're wondering, I do have my certificate in Japanese to English translation, so I'm not just plugging these names into Google Translate and hoping for the best. I have experience in this. But even then, I'm still not an expert, and this process inevitably takes plenty of research, so there's always going to be room for improvement in what I, or frankly, most other people come up with. The world of translation is slippery and diverse, let me tell ya. Though the personalized fan translation aspect won't take the forefront until we get to the characters from Brawl onwards, so we can see how people like this series by the time we get there. Of course, I'm also not going to go over every single move, as even in the Melee translation, some of them are just, yeah, that sure is a jab. So instead, I'm going to go over things that I consider to be the highlights and voicing whatever thoughts I have regarding them. And in today's video, we'll be going over these 5, technically 6 characters. So let's go. Mario's forward tilt, despite being a pretty basic kick, is called the plumber kick. Perhaps it's something you need to learn before becoming a plumber, so that's good to know. His up smash is called the lead headbutt. It's a really good name that gives it a feeling of weight and power, but especially ties it to plumbing. Like, you know, lead pipes. That's actually where the word plumbing comes from, the Latin word for lead being plum bum. So I'm actually a big fan of this name. Next, his down smash is called the breakdance sweep. Clearly calling back to Mario's renowned breakdancing days. I actually played this as a kid, it's kinda awesome. I should bring up that the Japanese name of this move in Melee is different than what it is now, but given that the move is still the same, and that if anything, the new Japanese name brings it closer to this Melee translation idea, I still think we can keep it. If you don't like it, call it the break spin because that's what it actually says. Oh, here's a fun one. Mario's neutral air is called the Plumber's Boot. What I mostly want to point out about this move is how this specific form of kick goes by another name in the community, the sex kick. A kick where a leg is thrust out and remains out for a short period of time. It's funnier if I don't even try to explain the name's origins, but this type of kick is everywhere throughout the series, with dozens of characters in Ultimate's roster having one of their own. And in Japanese, this naming scheme is always a character's name, kick. So in this case, it would be Mario Kick. But in the Melee translation, rather than just porting that scheme directly over, they try to put at least a slightly more unique spin on it. Either because they thought the original was just boring, or because they wanted to replicate the slightly more unique vibe that the original obtained by using the English word kick rather than any Japanese terminology like keri. Either way, while it's funny as hell to imagine this as just being the Mario Kick, I do like the route that the translators went with as well. Next, Mario's forward aerial is called the Meteor Knuckle. While we call these spikes in the community, the game itself refers to them as meteors, so that'll be reflected in other move names. Now I do want to give the Melee name another shout out. Plunger really just feels like it's way more fitting for this, right? But this is another one of those move names that is confirmed in the tips itself, so pick whichever one you like, I guess. His up air is the Bicycle Kick. I don't need to explain this one, but I might as well point out that the Japanese name is Air Slash, huh? I don't know about that one, buddy. Shulk's a few blocks down the road. Speaking of down, his down air is the Mario Tornado. This is the name of Mario's down special in Smash 64 and Melee, and was simply brought over to his down air slot once his down special turned to Flood. This is obvious when just looking at it, and it's fun that the name is kept the same too. Mario's back throw is called the Airplane Swing. This is a classic maneuver in the Mario series, but let's compare this one to the Japanese name too, which is Giant Swing. As someone who doesn't know that much about wrestling, I have to research all sorts of things regarding this, but evidently, a giant swing is a specific wrestling technique that, well, just look at it. This is obviously what Mario's doing here. So what about the airplane swing? Well, I do know something called the airplane spin, but this one puts the opponent on your shoulders instead. So I think the name Giant Swing is just more fitting, and I'm not even sure where the current version came from, but Airplane Swing is just what stuck around for all versions of Smash, so I guess that's that. His other throws are interesting too, as his down throw is called Down the Drain, which I'm a big fan of, and is kind of a funny name for a move that was his main combo throw in Smash 4. And his up throw is called Mario Launch. Okay, sure. But what's really funny about this one is how, if you translate the Japanese literally, you will get throw up. Haha, yeah, that's what I want to do when I see icky plucky broccoli, yuck! Just kidding, I actually love broccoli. Honorable mention to his forward throw, which has remained the same functionally throughout every game, but has since been given a new Japanese name, going from airplane throw to a more literal full swing throw. I still don't really get where the airplane is coming from, since I thought it required putting people on your shoulders first. Am I wrong? Like, again, I don't know much about wrestling, but I feel like I'm missing something here. Anyways, even though the Japanese name is different between games, the Melee translation of heave-ho could still reasonably apply to either version, and I do also like that, but I'm fond of this one too. I did my own research on this, and I've seen the phrase furinuki used in sports, especially tennis, for a swing that doesn't slow down as it reaches the ball. So a tennis-related term for Mario. I think you can see why this one's fitting. So I actually quite like it. Before we move on to Donkey Kong, I just want to quickly say, if you're enjoying the video, be sure to subscribe. My channel's super close to 200,000 subscribers, and it'd be really cool to beat that milestone. And also, if you like the sound of my voice and want to watch me play games in longer formatted videos, go subscribe to my newly created side channel, linked below. Thank you. Donkey Kong's forward tilt is called the Backhand Slap. Can you imagine getting backhanded by Donkey Kong? Even though this one had a different Japanese name in Melee, given that the idea is still the same, it feels like I ought to keep the Melee translation anyways, even if I do prefer the literal translation of Congo Backhand. Especially since we can see something similar with his down tilt, which is called the Slouch Slap. This is also its Melee translation, and despite the fact that the Japanese name is also very different now, it still keeps this name in Ultimate's tips. His up tilt is called Spiderweb Swipe. What a funny way to describe this motion. Like he's just trying to do some casual house cleaning, swatting away any creepy crawlies. Just give him an apron and I'll ask him to help tidy up my own house. His forward smash is the Kong Clap. As much as Dynaclap also sounds kinda cool, Kong Clap just feels like it's the only thing this move can actually be called. Speaking of clapping, his up smash is called Ape Applause. Oh my god, he's like, yeah, he's literally cheering for you. That's so adorable. I love it. I also love his down smash being called Twin Beat. Gives it a musical vibe that reminds me of Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, while still having it be him literally beating you, like, to death. Next, his neutral air is the Kong Whirl. A fitting name, but I did also like its Japanese name, the Donkey Lariat. Yes, that same wrestling move that Incineroar uses in his neutral special. You know, the word is so ingrained in my mind as wrestling that I didn't even know the original meaning was for something like a lasso. The more you know. His forward air is called the Hammer Knuckle, and buddy, let me tell you, when your knuckles are a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Kind of a sick name. Back air is called the Back Kick, which is an example of the reverse, where the English name is really basic and boring, but the Japanese one is cooler, being Kong Rocket. Given how oppressive this move is with its high speed and disjoint, being called a rocket is actually kinda perfect. Down air is called the Flying Stomp. It sure is a stomp and nothing else, so that's awesome. But once again, I want to point out the Japanese name being Air Stampede. I really like the wordplay in this one, since a stamp is another way to describe kicking down, but the word stampede makes it more animalistic too. Next, grabs and pummels also have names, if you didn't know, and Donkey Kong's pummel is called the Jungle Chop. Whoop-pow! Ooh, I love that, for sure. His unique forward throw is called the Kong Carry. In true DK fashion, they both need to be Ks or it just doesn't work. The community refers to this one as the Cargo Throw, and I often see that spelled with a C instead of a K, so we're already falling behind there. I wonder, if more people knew that this was called Kong Carry, would they use that? Or is Cargo Throw too cemented into the vernacular at this point? Oh well. And it's also worth pointing out how the Japanese name is just lifting. Yeah. So, obviously borrowing that verbatim would make for a pretty lame name. It wouldn't even necessarily be fully accurate either, since if a Japanese name uses English, then an English name using that same English could remove that exotic, more unfamiliar register. It's a case-by-case basis, of course. Unless you're cool with just calling this lifting, I don't know, be my guest. Lastly, up throw is the Coconut Toss. You know, he's actually quite experienced with those, given how his coconut gun can fire in spurts. Can you imagine if DK was given a coconut projectile that he could toss around, like Wii Fit Trainer's soccer ball? That would rule. All of Link's jab swings have individual names, but I want to talk about his jab 1. If we follow the same name scheme of Melee, this is just Slash. And given that the moves are basically the same idea between the games, that still checks out, but let's look at the Japanese name for it, Kesagiri. This is an actual kind of basic swing, going from the top then down diagonally. What's so interesting is that the kesa in the name is actually derived from the word for kasaya, the robes worn by Buddhist monks, and can also be used to describe wearing something draped over the shoulder. This is where the motion of the slice comes from, being the same path that this draped cloth goes down. Given that this is a real Japanese sword fighting technique, it would be best to just keep it as a loan word and have it just be kesagiri. Or if you wanted to make it more approachable to general audiences, you could deploy the bilingual tautology method of calling it a kesagiri slice. Think chai tea or naan bread, attaching the native term to a foreign one to make it more specified and understandable in that language. But okay, that's enough translation lessons. His forward tilt is the sword chop. Once again, another example where the Japanese name has a more interesting connotation with it, as Bamboo Splitter is pretty dang cool. It makes me instantly think of that one bamboo cutting game from Skyward Sword, though that's also just a coincidence given that this is just a real term in Kendo for a vertical slice down the middle of something, but it's still interesting. Link's down tilt is called the Grass Mower, and this is probably my favorite move name we'll see today. On the surface level, this is just funny. Link loves to slice through grass in order to find a bunch of fun stuff that the Picori have left for him. But then we can dig a bit deeper, looking at his Japanese name, Kusanagi. The thing is, there's a sword called the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, or just the grass cutting sword, and it's actually a legendary blade, being one of the 3 imperial regalia of Japan, or one of the 3 sacred treasures. So you have this dual meaning name. It's a reference to a legendary blade, while intentionally or not, also hearkening to how this funny little Hylian sure loves to cut grass. It's awesome. Link's forward smash is called the Sword Slice. Incredibly different vibe from the last one, like, yeah, it sure is. I'm bringing this up for 2 reasons. One, because its second slice has its own unique name, being the Double Sword Slice. Daring today, aren't we? But also because this is another case where the Japanese name is the slightly more interesting Smash Slice. Or maybe you could say Smash Slash. Ooh, I like that one. But nope, this is what is called an Ultimate's tip, so we gotta cope with that. Next, his neutral air is called the Hylian kick. Yet another sex kick, and another example of how the Japanese name just calls it the character's kick. But the translation tries to make it at least a little bit more unique. Again, I prefer that direction. And lastly are two I'm going to combine, being up air and down air, which are called the stab up and the sword plant, respectively. These technically serve their purpose fine here, but by using the same naming scheme in Japanese, we can trace these names to these skills in Zelda 2, being the jump thrust and the down thrust. For the jump thrust, the ability basically only appears in that game and then in Smash. Though technically the Japanese name of the move in Zelda 2 is different from what you see here, but given the whole theming of them, I think it's still fair to translate it the same. And the down thrust is the same name in Japanese between all games, and has also appeared more throughout the Zelda series. So even though our logic from before would have us keep the melee names, I think this is a case where we, as the community, have come up with something a bit more fitting in my opinion. Overall, a lot of good stuff on Link, even if I did end up preferring more of the Japanese names over their melee translations. Now you get to know everything about each approach, dear viewer. You're so lucky. Samus's down tilt is called the Earth Blaster. It's kind of a sick name for it, but I gotta say, I've always loved how the word earth gets verbalized in Japanese. Given how the phonetics carry over, it's just ass. That rules. Her forward smash is called the Arm Cannon Knuckle, which is kind of funny because, like, that's a cannon, bro. Arm cannons don't got knuckles, none. Up smash is referred to as Cover Fire, and it's a pretty fitting name, but peeking at that Japanese version, calling this move Hellfire is actually insane to me. Obviously, my first interpretation is that this is just some insanely sick and metal name for a move that's not really all that. Though in googling the term, I did learn about this missile, which also goes by the term Hellfire. Not that I think that's what this move is named after, and even if it was, the origins would still be the same, fire from hell. So yeah, we're just really calling things anything now, huh? Speaking of, her forward air is called Aerial Fire, and with much the same logic, the Japanese name is Aerial Hellfire. So just taking the word fire and making it more epic and gnarly and awesome. Okay, sure. It's pretty clear why these names would be changed, even if for moves whose names aren't really being broadcast very openly or anything. I still find it funny how inconsistent the team was about this though. As I've shown off multiple times, there are still other move names in this game that keep the reference to hell. So it goes. Fun bonus fact, her kick in Melee is one of these ones, so it was called the Samus kick in Japanese, but turned into the more interesting Chozo kick. This has since become the turning kick in modern games, being an entirely different thing, but I just wanted to bring that up anyways. I mean, you could still call this the Chozo kick if you wanted, but whatever. Her back air is called the Flying Back Kick, unassuming on its own, but the Japanese name was Sobat. And when I looked this up, the first result was this. Aww, Samus's back air is called Friends. That's so sweet. But otherwise, a lot of the other references were to fighting games. Street Fighter, King of Fighters, the whole 9 yards. Even though usually when I look up martial arts terminology, there's loads of non-gaming resources to refer to as well, right? So after further research, I found that Soba is actually referring to savate, which is a kind of French footboxing, and exists in wrestling via savate kicks. But I guess it ended up developing its own identity in Japanese wrestling, and therefore also Japanese media, as nowadays you can hear quite a bit about something called a rolling sobat. Technically more specific than just sobat on its own, but I still think that's what it would be referred to as anyways, especially looking at the move here. This isn't me necessarily saying anything is wrong, I just thought it was neat to go over the name's origins and how it's kinda changed to become its own thing in different spheres. You know, going from savat to sobat. Lastly, her pummel is called the Chozo Chop. Another good one. I guess if you missed the Chozo Kick, then this could make up for it. You might be wondering about Dark Samus too, but all of her move names are the exact same as Samus's, minus their final smashes, which is the Zero Laser for Samus and the Phazon Laser for Dark Samus. Oh well. Yoshi's forward smash is called the Noggin Floggin. It's such an incredibly cute and fitting name for Yoshi. Very fun to say it too. Well, until I looked up what flog means, because I didn't actually know that before, and that's when I learned that it's a method of punishment or torture, usually involving a stick or a whip. Okay, damn. Anyways, his up smash is called the Loop-de-Loop Kick. It's worth pointing out that this translation of the name could also be Somersault Kick. It's the same idea, but I settled on Loop-de-Loop as an executive decision because it follows the childish, cutesy vibe of Yoshi's other moves, but technically either option is like okay, I guess. Next we've got his neutral air, which is Yoshi's Kick. So, not quite different from the original like we've seen before, but it still works. Yoshi's got that aura to him anyways. His forward air is called the Noggin Dunk, and is a confirmed name as it appears in Yoshi's tips. This is a case where I love the English name quite a bit more. Just like with the Loop-de-Loop, the register of this name is just so much more playful and fun, whereas the Japanese name seems much more frank and to the point, being a rotating headbutt. Though, it could be pointed out that, by writing these names in hiragana, rather than using kanji or katakana like many other move names do, it gives off a sort of childish register through that method. So in a sense, making more childish translations does still fit. It's a whole thing that I don't really have time to go over, just trust me, bro, that's how these writing systems can work sometimes. Next, his back air is called the Tail Wag. Such a cute and fitting name. Oh my goodness, he is wagging his tail. I guess we could ignore the more intense Japanese name of Rampaging Tail. Again, it's putting a more childlike spin on things. His up air is called the Dino Flip. Not much to comment on, I just really like that. And his down air is the Flutter Kick, using the same logic as his Flutter Jump. You can obviously see the connection there. His grab is called the Tongue Catch, though in Melee it's actually called the Sticky Tongue. The Japanese name ended up going a completely different and more direct route, so I'm just gonna keep that. Lastly, I really liked Yoshi's pummel name, being Chew. Specifically its Japanese name where it's pronounced as Tsukami Kami Kami, which could more literally translate to grab, chomp, chomp. It's a play on Tsukami, which means grab, and Kami being bite, which I suppose is being repeated here to make it feel more playful. Either way, I just like to say it. Tsukami Kami Kami, Tsukami Kami Kami. But with those 5 characters looked at, I figure we should end things here for now. The intro took up more time than I would have liked, but if you enjoyed the idea behind this video and want to see me do more characters, please make sure to let me know in the comments and support this video in any way that you can. This feels like a topic that doesn't get discussed enough with the expertise that it deserves. Not that I'm exactly an expert in source material, especially wrestling, but I can at least do my best to research things and convey what I learned to you all. So if the topic of move names interests you, or you really like learning about language differences and other translation tidbits, then I would love for this to do well so that I could add it to the rotation of mini-series on this channel. Regardless though, thank you for watching, and an even bigger thank you to my patrons Burbo, Pixelboy, Raighne, Sil700, and everyone else for their incredible support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.